Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Ukraine Crisis Media Center. We make a brief rundown of today's schedule. At 12 o'clock, we're going to have Danylo Lubkivsky, the Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine. At 12:30, there's going to be Gennady Druzenko, Chairman of the All-Ukrainian Organization, Ukrainian Reserve Army, together with Elena Bondarenko, a reservist. And they're going to be discussing the issue, why does Ukraine need the reserve army? At 1:30, we're going to have Dmytro Tymchuk, Director of the Center of Military and Political Research, Coordinator of Information Resistance Group. At 2 o'clock, we're going to have a press briefing, Action from East to West, which was initiated by Ukrainian Catholic University with the support of the Lviv City Council, businesses and universities of Lviv. And the participants will be Pavlo Khabzey, Vice Rector of the Ukrainian Catholic University, Yulia Ignatiev, organizer of the initiative, Andriy Chubko, Director of Khlib Trade, partner of the initiative, and Daria Fomenko, member of the initiative from Donetsk Oblast. At 2:30, our last speaker is going to be Andriy Antonishchak, coordinator for the National Guard of Ukraine at Maidan Self-Defense. He is the former Sotnya leader who recently returned from Slavyansk. Thank you, and I'll see you in a couple of minutes. Шановні панове, дозвольте представити нам.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, the first speaker today is Danylo Lubkivsky, Deputy Minister for Foreign Affairs of Ukraine. Hello, I'm glad to see you.
So let me start in English, then I will make a few remarks in Ukrainian. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to start by a principal message that our government would like to deliver, that the dialogue is a pivotal concept in modern Ukraine. Maidan started from a protest of citizens who wanted to be heard by the government. In post-Maidan Ukraine, dialogue between regions with authorities, among the civil society, between our civil society groups, national minorities as well, define who we are as a nation. In more than 20 years of Ukraine's independence, fundamental issues of our nation's development, ranging from constitutional basics to language policies, have been largely neglected or cast aside by political games. Maidan changed that. I'm happy to announce that on Wednesday, the first round of the all-Ukrainian unity dialogue will take place in the Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine. The dialogue will encompass representatives of major political parties, representatives of regions and confessions, academia, business circles, and civil society. The all-Ukrainian dialogue is an answer, a clear answer to challenges in Ukraine. No one else but Ukrainians have to find the way towards national understanding, peace, and progress. We value the assistance of the United Nations and the OSCE, especially a special monitoring mission, in reaching a compromise in Ukraine. But at the end of the day, the dialogue and the compromise depend on Ukrainians only. I confirm that consultations on the OSCE roadmap continue. Still, the roadmap cannot cancel or substitute implementation of Geneva agreements and clear commitments. While Ukraine holds its end to the process, Russia needs to withdraw the military from our borders and stop support of terrorists in Ukrainian territory. Ukrainian people yearn the dialogue of unity, not a state of permanent crisis. They need a real dialogue instead of terrorist plebiscites held under a gun. The dialogue includes all Ukrainian society, in particular its multinational dimension. These days, Ukraine commemorates victims of the Soviet Stalin deportation from Crimea. On May 16, representatives of Crimean Tatars and other nationalities, the government and diplomatic representatives will hold a requiem in the memory of the 70th anniversary of those tragic events. Ukrainians will demonstrate solidarity with our brothers and sisters in Crimea, whose families died on the road to Central Asia, endured hardships in a strange land, eventually returned to the motherland, and now either have to leave their home again or live under the occupation. Ladies and gentlemen, let me briefly say that, among other news, our foreign minister will follow our Prime Minister Yatsenyuk and other members of the cabinet to Brussels, where first in the history of Ukraine, joint session of the European Commission and the Ukrainian government will take place. They will discuss the EU assistance in political and economic reforms in Ukraine. I do thank you. And now I will make a brief statement in Ukrainian.
Same statement?
Have the English translation, so you can compare. Шановні пані та
Dear ladies and gentlemen, allow me to first of all start with the fact that we feel respect towards our armed forces, to Ukrainian servicemen who are protecting our motherland and our citizens in this complicated time. But this is important in principle, that we should resort to national dialogue in order to solve the issues in Ukraine. And in order to do this, we should concentrate all our forces. And this is the key to understanding. It is principally important that this is our domestic internal dialogue, and the problems of the change of borders or Russian geopolitical projects are not in the center of this dialogue, but our acute social and economic and political problems. On the 14th of May in Verkhovna Rada, there will be a session of the All-Ukrainian National Dialogue of Unity will take place. We invited to participate representatives of academia, confessions, public activists, politicians, and we expect that there, and here is a very important moment, that this is just a beginning, that there will be a broad discussion to find compromise on the key issues of our society. The roundtable will be continued in all the regions of Ukraine, and the High Ukrainian representative will be coordinating these efforts. This is our domestic Ukrainian dialogue, and it is important that this is really a dialogue, not just a vision of it. A discussion on the problems that are really of concern to Ukrainian citizens. We will welcome the participation of Mr. Ishinger, who was suggested as a mediator by the OSCE. The guarantee of the exit from the situation that formed due to the aggression of Russia is the fulfillment of three priorities: de-escalation of the conflict, the all-Ukrainian dialogue, and the holding of presidential elections on the 25th of May. These 3 points are in the basis of the roadmap that was passed on by Ukraine to the Swiss chairmanship of OSCE. We understand that the main points of our position were reflected in their roadmap by the Swiss presidency. The consultations are going on about this document. We welcome the active role of OSCE in the process of regulating the solving of the situation in Ukraine and around it, and the continuation of constructive dialogue with everybody who can make their contribution to the fulfillment of Geneva agreements. But we think that the unconditional fulfillment of those obligations is needed by all these sides of the conflict. We have good news. Today in Brussels there will be a joint sitting of the Ukrainian government and the board of the European Commission under the chairmanship of Arseniy Yatsenyuk and José Manuel Barroso. This is for the first time in history the event of such a level and representation takes place, and it becomes a continuation of the dialogue between the leadership of the European Union and Ukraine. This dialogue was launched by the visit of the European Union delegation to Ukraine in March this year, and the key issues there are the support from the EU for Ukrainian reforms aimed at the stabilization of macro-financial situation and political situation, and the introduction of the standards of the quality of life for citizens of Ukraine. We will define short-term and medium-term priorities, and we will have agreements about technical and other support from EU to Ukraine. A principally important moment is that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs continues to work on the elections, to prepare the elections of President of Ukraine on the 25th of May. This is our priority and our principal task. together with foreign diplomatic establishments, institutions, the ministry is renewing and making more accurate the list of our people abroad on the basis of their register at consulates. There is a nuance that I want to make public. We draw your attention to the fact that the current legislation does not allow to make changes in the list of voters on the day of voting. 19th of May is the last day to apply for being included into the lists of voters. That's why we call upon our compatriots abroad, or those who will be abroad on this day, to take part in the elections and before the 19th of May address the respective electoral commissions or consular institutions with respective statements. That's very important because we want to provide for the quality holding of presidential elections. Thank you very much. Other questions to our speaker? 1+1. Can you comment on yesterday's statement of Mr. Orban, Prime Minister of Hungary, that they demand dual citizenship and autonomy for Hungarians in Transcarpathia? I know the official position of the Hungarian government, and Hungary supports Ukraine in these complicated times. We are engaged in a full-fledged and continuous dialogue that includes the provision of rights for Ukrainians in Hungary and Hungarians in Ukraine. We have to follow one key priority: European standards for the provision of the rights of national minorities. As you know, the Council of Europe and other bodies testify to the fact that the national minority rights in Ukraine are being provided for at a high level in spite of what is happening in Crimea due to the occupation. We will further protect the rights of all national minorities, and we pay special attention to Hungarian minority, which is part of our space. No doubt about this. At the same time, this has to fit the framework of Ukrainian legislation and European standards that Ukraine shares. Aren't you? I do not know about this very statement. We have to check whether this was the actual wording, but I am sure about the clarity of the position of Hungarian government, who support Ukraine, and our position is also stable. We protect national minorities in Ukraine, and we will do this, and we will protect Ukrainians' rights abroad.
Our foreign minister, Radosław Sikorski, says that Warsaw is mentioned as a place for energy and gas negotiations between Ukraine and Russia. Could you tell us more and how to solve the gas problem with Russia? And the second question about dialogue, about round tables. Would you would you take a dialogue with the separatists?
With whom?
Separatists from the east.
I see. Okay. First of all, let me put aside these energy issues, since that's a matter of a competence of our energy specialists, and I'm sure that they will provide you with all necessary information on the matter, since the process is ongoing, and we believe that we will receive good results, and we do count on Polish support as well. Your next question about round table and participants and all those who may participate in the discussion and in that dialogue. First of all, let me say that the dialogue is our principal position, and we will continue to make all necessary efforts to ensure that dialogue may bring constructive results that will strengthen Ukraine's independence, territorial integrity, and unity between our citizens. That's our principal approach. The second thing is that absolutely clear that we do understand that right now in the east and south of Ukraine there are a lot of citizens who express and demonstrate their strong social protest against all diseases that were demonstrated by the previous government of Ukraine, particularly by corruption, by criminal economy, by bandits, by those who may endanger their prosperity and life. And that's the second thing. And we would like to hear and to be in touch with these people, because these people go ahead with our efforts that look alike our efforts on Maidan. So that's a clear stance of the whole united Ukrainian nation. And there is a third thing, which is very crucial in terms of your question. We also know, and you know as well, that a number of efforts in the east and south of Ukraine were inspired by Russian special agents, subversive groups, and those who would like to undermine Ukraine's security and territorial integrity. These people are guided by the Russian authorities, and they endanger our security. Of course, we will never speak with terrorists, since there is a huge threat of the international terrorism, which is not only the Ukraine's case, but the problem for the whole international community. And we will deal with that threat accordingly. Thank you.
If possible, another question?
Yes, absolutely, please. You're welcome.
Minister Lubkivsky, have you noticed any change in Russian positions on the border, or any proof whatsoever that they followed any kind of withdrawal of people or of money or anything funding this insurgency? And if not, how can you hope that their promises will be followed in the future?
My answer will be very short, brief, and clear. No evidence of that. That's why we stated very clearly, and we continue to deliver this message. Russia taught us a good lesson. Never trust simply Russian words. We would like to be clear about that, and we would like to see real actions from the Russian authorities, since they accepted all necessary commitments according to the Geneva Statement of 17th of April. I do thank you. And that was the second part of that.
Well,
what we can do about that?
What can you do if they do make more promises? Why would you expect them to?
We expect their real actions to withdraw their troops, to stop to Ukraine, to stop support subversive groups, to clearly and publicly state they do not support terrorism in Ukraine. That's our demands, and that's actually the clear stance of the whole international community. So that's the task before all of us. We have to show very strong solidarity in these times. No compromises on the substance. There is no civil war in Ukraine. There is a clear aggression of Russian Federation against Ukraine, and that's a principal thing. That's a problem, and we have to solve this problem accordingly and by the united efforts. And also, that's very important that our solidarity may give us a chance to bring Russia back from the road they choose to the civilized relationship between nations. So there is no alternative for them. There is no exit strategy for them, because they have the only way they have to admit and accept that's the way back to the international law and order. All the Russian propaganda, which clearly says that and uses double standards, clear lies, blackmails, this is not the acceptable way for us. We are continue and we will continue to convince them, saying that they have to get back to the international law, to the fundamental principles of our cooperation. That's the way. And also, we have to be clear about another principal thing. Crimea is Ukraine. We are going to solve the issue. Crimea will have to be returned to Ukraine, and Crimea will be again with us, since that's the occupied territory by Russians. Thank you.
Lucian Kim from Slate and Zeit Online. 3 very short questions. You said you won't speak to terrorists, so who concretely from the East representing this protest movement there will be present in the dialogue? Second question is, what role will Wolfgang Ischinger be playing in this dialogue? Because I didn't understand in the Ukrainian part. And third, when do you expect any results about this OSCE roadmap?
And your first question?
Was about who will you speak concretely to in the East?
He's running time.
Okay. So, first of all, we have to understand that the round table, which will take place at the premises of the Verkhovna Rada, that's just a beginning. We have to establish a wide discussion and dialogue between all Ukrainian regions, political parties, representatives of local governments, and so on. That's why as I do understand that's why this round table will be open to different participants and representatives. And since it will be the ongoing process, I do believe that we will manage the vast majority and representatives of different civil society groups, representatives of regions, representatives of political parties, except terrorists, of course. The second question about Ambassador Ischinger. As I mentioned, we are glad that OSCE continues with their efforts to promote the all-Ukrainian dialogue and to strengthen Ukraine's independence and unity. It means that the role of Ambassador Ischinger will be important, and he will take part in that process as co-facilitator of the whole endeavor. But that's a clear thing that we would like to share. This is the Ukrainian dialogue, and this is our internal homework that should be done by all Ukrainians. The door for that dialogue is open to all people of goodwill, and this is our internal effort to stabilize the situation and to produce those results that may strengthen our country. By that, I mean political issues, constitutional issues, decentralization, economic issues, and also the issue of government, issues of civil society control on our politicians and government. So that's very important.
But a significant part of the population there does not support unity and does not recognize the Kiev government.
I'm not sure about that. So would you be so kind to prove your words? How? How do you know?
I'm saying it's significant. I'm not saying any numbers, but I just returned from 2 weeks
I'm
in the region.
I may share concrete numbers. 70% of people who live in the east and south are for the united and strong Ukraine. And that's the results of the recent poll conducted in those regions, including Donetsk, Mariupol, and others. Only around 10% are against that. More than 70% of people are against armed coup d'etat that happened there and inspired by the Russian authorities. These are concrete numbers and the result of real situation over there. Because absolutely, and I hope you agree with me, that we cannot count on those illegitimate terrorist referenda that were held there. So, and the third point was about OSCE efforts. Roadmap. As I said, we have to implement and to ensure the implementation of the Geneva agreements. That's the core mission of all our efforts. Any roadmap may be helpful if it is result-oriented. We do believe that OSCE roadmap will be result-oriented and will bring tangible results in those critical issues as de-escalation, as holding presidential elections in Ukraine, and others. Thank you.
would like, sorry, we are running out of time. Would like to thank Danylo Lubkivsky, Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine. Thank you very much.
Дуже дякую вам. Good luck. Good luck. Thank you.
We're going to be having our next guest speaker shortly. Thank you. Шановні пані та колеги, з нами був заступник міністра закордонних справ.
We had Danylo Lubkivsky, Deputy Minister for Foreign Affairs of Ukraine, with us.